Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. It's Lynda Lamp here, and it's February 21st, 2021. And I'm going to read today from my book, Walking Through Your Walls, Loving Yourself and Everyone Else. It's part of a 3 or 4 volume series called Humanity's Handbook for Living Consciously in the 21st Century. So today we're starting chapter 6, which I am excited about. I love chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Deconstructing Religion. And we're going to pretty much break religion down for you. And hopefully by the end of the chapter, you'll have a different perspective about where religion fits in with our lives. So to start, we'll start with a quote from Carl Jung. The Christ symbol is the greatest importance for psychology insofar as it is perhaps the most highly developed and differentiated symbol of the self, apart from the figure of Buddha. I hope you found the last chapter on timelines interesting and revealing of a view of life not quite seen before. I found it especially interesting that the timeline can basically be summarized by science/discovery, religion/philosophy, and war. Compiling that timeline was further proof of how elusive and changing the truth really is. Shakespeare once said, "The devil can cite scripture for his purpose." I certainly think in today's world we've seen that quite a bit. Although I tried to trace the evolution of religion in the timeline, I think because of religion's power and the huge role it plays in our lives, it bears some further attention. One finds in the task of deconstructing religion that you can end up chasing your tail because one definition is based on a previous usage, which may be based on a different definition, sometimes in a different language, and on you go. Just like the truth, in other studies, the truth is especially elusive in religious studies. Gandhi said, "I like your Christ, but I do not like your Christians. They are so unlike your Christ." Again, I think we're seeing that acted out in daily life. Words and names we commonly use today did not exist in ancient times. And of course, no one was around to write down what happened during the early years that are documented in the Bible. So how exactly did that get documented? Where did the original stories of the Old Testament and other ancient writings come from if the people who wrote them down weren't there to witness them? The Bible and many other religious texts are bandied about as if they were the gospel truth, when in fact they are the creations of men, not our divine parent. Nothing humans express is pure. Everything is filtered through the vessel that delivers it. Our personal experiences influence our delivery. We don't know much about religion prior to written records, and it seems all the studying of ancient religion revolves around burial traditions. So we have to start somewhere, I suppose. The Dalai Lama said, "There is no need for temples, no need for complicated philosophies. My brain and my heart are my temples. My philosophy is kindness." Oh, if we only all lived that way. It is not my intention to go through all the different religions for you or in any way judge any of them as right or wrong, or any of them as being one more worthy than another. They all exist at a level beside, outside, or apart from what I want to show you. I'm shining a light on all of it with the hope of revealing things in new illumination. Garrison Keillor once said, "Anyone who thinks sitting in a church can make you a Christian must also think that sitting in your garage will make you a car." I want to take you to the place where you have opened up to the broadness and diversity of what our human beings of what our humanity brings to this physical third dimension. Let me read that sentence again. I want to take you to that place where you have opened up to the broadness and diversity that our humanity brings to this physical third dimension. I want to take you to the place of the beginning, to the truth that resides inside all the teachings, to the hidden jewel that will show you that the way to your joy, which is the only thing that truly matters, because when you are in your joy, you are one with the unified field and the all that is. When you are in your joy, you are one with all that is, and you are connected to the oneness of our Heavenly Parent. You see, it isn't just the issue of any one of these things, religion, time, space, philosophy, science, etc. It's all of them. Because all of these things are connected, and you are connected to all of it, and to me, and to everyone, and everything else. There are as many ideas and theories about these things as there are people who study them. When you look at any religion, it has a theory of how life works, how life came into being, and what life means. Everyone has a theory. In fact, a new Christian denomination is being established every 10.5 hours. This was written in 2016, so the research was done in 2015. So in 6 years, that figure may have shifted, but it was on an upward trajectory the entire history before it. So my guess is that there's someone out there making a new Christian denomination in less than every 10.5 hours at this point. Here's a Beatrix Potter quote. All outward forms of religion are almost useless and are the causes of endless strife. Believe there is a good power silently working all things for good. Behave yourself and never mind the rest. She was wise. What I have found is that when studying science, the most current one is the most relevant. On the other hand, when studying spirituality and religious philosophy, while there may be nuggets of truth in some modern work, it all tends to be clouded with the influences of this physical plane and, in too many cases, the author's egos. In the end, most religions, philosophers, and systems miss the ultimate gift that our shared parent gave us, which is the ability to feel, create, and share joy, and to experience bliss, peace, and love. We are certainly free to feel other things, pain, misery, loathing, greed, etc. But why do we have to choose? Why would we choose these things as often as we do? No one comes here with the intention of living a life of misery. Unfortunately, many live lives of misery and pain because they do not understand how things work. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to deconstructing religion. As with the different religion, different dimensions of being, we find many dimensions within religion, and every one of them has a theory about how things work. On one of the research paths I was following, there was a term, ascended master, which led me to a Wikipedia article with the following statement. A lord of the world is a human being or a being of some life wave other than human life wave who has taken the 9th initiation. The 9th initiation is the highest initiation possible on a 9D dimensional planet grid, such as Earth, and it will be until the end of the 21st of December 2012. I think there's I don't know if we have a small edit issue there or the quote or what. But in any case, so that's lovely, except that it doesn't say what happens after December 21st, 2012. And we're well past that, right? And how many people do you know that are talking about the ninth initiation, or 9D, dimensional planet grid? Okay, I'm going to continue reading. That was a little off. So that's lovely, except it doesn't say what happens after December 21st, 2012. And how do you know what they're talking about with this ninth initiation in the ninth dimensional planet grid? As if they teach this stuff anywhere. Gee whiz, you can find out what a ninth dimensional planet grid is by Googling it. But for the Wikipedia definition to include the phrase as if we all know what it means, well, you see where I'm going. We've all lived through the end of the world, the Mayan calendar, 12/21/12 now. Does that make us all ascended masters? To the visual eye, nothing happened. That's to the visual eye. To my eyes, and to the eyes of many involved in the awakening of planet Earth, Eden, much is seen. There is definitely a shift in consciousness occurring, definitely an awakening happening. There's an awakening that is manifesting across all sorts of fronts, from political to environmental to spiritual to financial to economic to agricultural to pharmaceutical to medical to science. I could go on. It's been happening for quite some time now in a visible way, but not in a visible way. But if you take the wider angle view, you'll see, as I do, that a great and perfect evolution is occurring here on Earth, Eden, Gaia, with us humans. Back to October of 2010, when I attended Jon Stewart's rally to restore sanity. I'm glad I attended because I witnessed one of the largest turnouts Washington, D.C. has ever experienced. The rally generated the highest ridership of the DC Metro on a Saturday in the history of time. I got that from insiders' information, but it will likely never be made public. There were people on the mall all the way to the Washington Monument, and I witnessed the largest media conspiracy ever perpetrated on the American people in person, firsthand. The media was told not to attend by their employers. Reporters and the like were informed that if they did attend the rally, they were not to report on the event. There was no major channel media coverage except for what occurred on social media and some cable channels. The mass of humanity did not hear our voices that day. They did not know hundreds of thousands of people, perhaps a million or more, were willing to travel thousands of miles to attend and show their support for a more tempered and moderate approach to our problems as a country. When the midterm elections took place that November, apathy prevailed, voter turnout was low, and gerrymandering on the part of the Republicans, Republicans, as some would call them, took care of the rest. I'm convinced that had mainstream news channels covered the rally to restore sanity, the midterm elections in 2010 would not have gone the way they did. The fringe conservatives would not have won the seats they won, but sadly, and a deep and profound apathy has set in throughout this country, at least it had back then, and too many people believe their voices don't count, so they can't make a difference. Would not be more mistaken. It's supposed to be government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So if we're not happy with the government, we have no one to blame but ourselves. Later on in Volume 3, we'll go into more depth on this subject, but in the meantime, let me just say, if you're of voting age and eligible to vote, no matter where you live on this planet, go and register. Make sure you vote in every election. You possibly can. Your voice must be heard. For me, December 21st, 2012 didn't change anything instantly. Rather, it marked a doorway standing open through which I gladly passed along with many others. It is, but marks a transitional time for me as I embrace the mission I came here to do. As I understand it, thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, or even millions walked through their own doors at the same time. So while 12/21/12 was not a visible end of the world, as some predicted, it most certainly marked a new world being born. So let's get on with this, shall we? There's so much ground to cover. There is one mind, one supreme source from which all that is came. It is often called the mind of God, and we often refer to it or asked to call this the Father or our Father. As you have seen, I'm using universal parent, heavenly parent, celestial parent, and our great shared parent as substitutes for the gender-laden term Father. The isness, which is us, the isness, which is, here. The isness, which is us, started out without gender. It started out in a non-material way. It started out as thought before form, and it did not have a sex. One may presume the application of gender came about much later in a male-dominated society when they came to talk about the isness. When the man Yeshua ben Joseph made reference to his father, he was referring to his creative parent, or to what we think of as God today. According to globalresearch.ca, the word God never appears in the original language of the Bible. According to the dictionaries, God is from the 16th century German. Instead, such words as Yewa, Yuvu, which is really hard to say because there's no vowels other than the Y, Elohim, Hotheos, or Hokoros were used in the original scriptures. The word's only surviving non-Germanic relative is Sanskrit, which is Hu, H-U. Numerous sources seem to back up this claim. In fact, the English word God is identical to the Anglo-Saxon word good. There is a great article to read if you want to understand more about the word God itself by Craig Bluebell on the site Bible Answers Stand. He leaves us with the question, what do we now do with the knowledge that our word for God is rooted in pagan astrological worship? Regardless of the origin of the word God, throughout history, cultures have had deities they worshipped. Egyptians, for example, had a multitude of gods and goddesses from Akkad to Yam, and that's Y-A-M or Y-A-M-M, including the god Aha, A-A-H. I chose the word Ah for God, A-A-H, never knowing about this Egyptian god. If you were with us when we read the preface or the introduction, that's what I'm referring to, is that a lot of times in this book, I will use the word Ah for God. And so there was a word in the Egyptian language, A-A-H, and I came up with A-A-H on my own without realizing it. So, and that's not really on my own, because you tap into that universal knowledge that's out there at that level where we're all one. And so it just came through to me to use it. Across the globe and throughout time, cultures have had deities they called gods for everything imaginable. Gods include ruling the skies, the earth, and all things in between. The seat of civilization has been traced to South Africa, or is it Australia? We're not sure. But original Aboriginal cultures tend to be the happiest people on earth, Gaia Eden, today. As I've said, it's truly impossible to know the beginnings at this point from any external source. Nothing was written down for thousands of years after numerous religions had already started. It's also entirely possible that long before Christ, the damage of the disconnection from our source had already occurred. By the time Yeshua ben Joseph arrived here on earth, it might have already been too late for his message of love to be heard. Humans are so steeped in fear already, and at that point, we're already so capitalistic, corrupt, materialistic, and conniving. Certainly, Yeshua's execution at such a young age, is a good indication that he was too late. Oh, hi, Amber. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Yeshua ben Joseph made it here in that lifetime to try and help turn things around, to try and reconnect humanity with the celestial parent, to know the way to harmony and love, to show the way to reconnect with source, to show the way to peace and oneness. He came to wake us up. I believe that at this time on earth, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, awakened individuals walking this planet, giving voice to these same callings, giving voice to infinite unconditional love, giving voice to peace, giving voice to joy, giving voice to self-care, giving voice to compassion, and giving voice to oneness, giving voice to mindfulness, giving voice to transcendence. However, there is some distinct differences in approach that I want to point out. I'm serving as a luminary. I am merely shining a light on the road in the darkness. I'm not suggesting anyone follow me. I'm not attempting to lead you down a road. I've swept up into a pile the answers to many of the questions about life that you may have. My unique life and ability to find answers has resulted in my ability to shine a light on things in such a way as to make them easier to see. That's all. I'm not attempting to start a new religion, as Yeshua ben Joseph inadvertently did, or as many others have throughout the ages. I believe we all have the answers we need within ourselves, and you don't need to follow anyone but your own spirit and soul. So we'll talk about this in greater detail later in this volume and in volume 2. So let's spend a little time looking at the current religions on planet Earth and at the influence they have on modern society. As a starting point here is data that is current as of December 2015. How lucky for us, when I found this article, it had been updated just 4 hours earlier. And thank you to the Religious Tolerance Group for this up-to-date post. So this article actually came from www.religiostolerance.org, and the document is World, REL, so World Religion, but abbreviated just to rel.htm. And I expect it's probably been updated since. So this is a chart. I will just read it as best I can. So we've got the religion, we have the date founded, we have the sacred texts, the membership, and the percentage of the world religions that their membership represents. So Christianity is the largest on earth. It was founded in 30 CE, so that's basically 3 years before they executed or crucified Jesus, Yeshua. The sacred texts of the Bible, the membership is about 2,039 million. It's 32% of the world. This again was from 2015, so that's changed a little. And it was dropping. Islam was founded in 622. The sacred texts are the Quran and the Hadith. The membership is 1,570 million. That was 22% and growing. Hinduism was founded in 1500 BCE with truly ancient roots. So 1,500 years before, 1,500 years plus before, or 1,500 years before the birth of Jesus. The sacred texts are the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and the Rig Veda. 950 million, it's 13% of the world population, and it's stable, it tends to be stable. People with no religion have a membership of about 775 million. It was about 12% at the time, and it was dropping. So people finding religion or seeking religion. Then you have Chinese folk religion that was founded in 270 BCE. They don't have any specific sacred texts. There's 390 million, and that's 6% of the population. And then Buddhism, which you might that might be surprising to some of you. I know when I did this research, it was surprising to me. That was formed in 523 BCE. The Tripitaka, consisting of the Vinaya, the Sutras, and the Abhidharma for the sacred texts. Membership was 350 to 1,600 million. So it still comes in at 6%, but that's a bigger range than the Chinese folk religion, to a certain extent. And they say that that's stable. And then we have tribal religions formed in prehistory time, all oral traditions, 232 million, 4%. Atheists, about 150 million, and that's 2%. New religions, about 130 million at 2%. Sikhism, formed in the 1500s. Guru Granth Sahib, 23.8 million, less than 1%. Judaism, the Torah, the Talmud, 15.5 million, less than 1%. And then spiritualism at 12. All of these are less than 1%. We've got spiritualism, no date could be cited for that. Taoism, the date would be 550 BCE. The Tao Te Ching is their book or sacred texts. The Baha'i faith, formed in the 1863, and their sacred text is the Al-Kitab Al-Aqdas. I'm not saying that right, I'm sure. Confucianism was 520 BCE. Lunyu, Jamanism, I'm not saying that right. Siddhartha and the Crete are the texts. That was 570. Zoroastrianism, 600 to 6000 BCE. The Avesta is their sacred text. Shinto, 500 CE. And then there's other various religions, about 1.1 million people. And then Wicca is the last identifiable group large enough to identify. And those traditions, there's a range between 800 BCE to 1940 CE. There is no specific person or texts. So some additional notes on Taoism. According to a statistical overview of 2021 of religions in China, the number of Taoists is this is a quote, the number of Taoists is a difficult number to estimate due to a variety of factors, including defining Taoism. According to a survey of religion in China in the year 2010, the number of people practicing some form of Chinese folk religion is near 950 million. 70% of the Chinese do that. Among these, 173 million, about 13%, practice some form of Taoist-defined folk faith. Further in detail, 12 million have passed from formal initiation into Taoism or adhere exclusively to it. The religionstolerance.org notes that Taoism and Confucianism, mixed with Buddhism, are major cultural and philosophical influences in many Eastern or East Asian nations. Religious Taoism is still very significant in Taiwan. So chartsbin.com reports 6,111,056 Taoists as of the year 2006. Pathos.com and religiousfacts.com report 20 million followers of Taoism. So estimates are, at this point in time, that there are at least 42,000 or more religions on Earth, with, as you can see, the top three being Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. So here's a very brief summary of the 6 best known religions: Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, New Age, and Judaism, just so we have a basis for our discussions. Christians believe in a God who is loving and approachable. There are currently 43,000 denominations, and this number is expected to grow to 55,000 by 2025, according to the Gordon Cornwell Theology Seminary. It's estimated that a new denomination is formed, as we said earlier in this section, 10.5 every 10.5 hours, or 2.3 denominations per day. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Hindus acknowledge multitudes of gods and goddesses. Hinduism has been called the oldest religion in the world, and many practitioners refer to Hinduism as the eternal law, the Sanatana Dharma. There are 3 generic types of Hinduism and 30 or more subsets or denominations. Buddhists say there is no deity. There are 5 basic types of Buddhism, and there are many subsets, too many to count. Some would say there are as many types of Buddhism as there are Buddhists. Islam, Muslims, believe in a powerful but unknowable God. There are 3 major sects. The sects are hard to count. The subsets are hard to count, perhaps as many as 35 or more. New Age followers believe they are God because God is in all there is. There are easily 350 or more New Age denominations. Of a personal note, only one in the list had the word love in the title. This is important, as you will learn further on. Judaism today is not so much a religion as a cultural heritage, although it began as a very significant religion because of its focus on monotheism. Jews are members of the tribe of Judah, also known as Israelites, members and direct descendants of a nation existing in the land of Israel from the 6th century BC to the 1st century AD, and those whose religion was Judaism. Religions are fluctuating in power. Some radical factions of Islam are still using war as a way to spread their religion. Peace is elusive in the Middle East, no matter how hard people work at it, but peace is elusive everywhere. As a side note regarding the elusiveness of peace, we have 2 primates that are our closest cousins, chimpanzees and bonobos. No bonobo has ever killed another bonobo. We don't know why that is. But what we think of as sex is something completely different in their world. Bonobos use sex as a negotiation and comfort technique, and they all have sex with each other regardless of age and gender. They live peacefully, and there is no murder, whereas there is murder among chimpanzees, our other cousins, and they tend to lead warring lives. The question is it our genetics or our beliefs that cause us so much pain and suffering? Oh, hey, hello, a bonobo is there. So I'll just read that sentence again. We have 2 primates that are our closest cousins, chimpanzees and bonobos. So they're actually a form of chimpanzee, but we call the one chimpanzees and we call the other ones bonobos. They look the same, I believe. I think it's hard to tell them a difference from visually. So here's a quote from Cory Booker. Before you speak to me about your religion, first show it to me in how you treat other people. Before you tell me about how much you love your God, show me in how much you love all his children. Before you preach to me of your compassion for your faith, teach me about it through your compassion for your neighbors. In the end, I'm not as impressed in what you have to tell or sell as in how you choose to live and give. One has to wonder, what exactly is religion giving to us? We have roughly a we have roughly a different religion for every 1.6 million people. So religion is not solving our problems. Every year we're gaining about 76 million people. That's total births minus total deaths. So we're creating on average, 2.3 new religions a day. So religion is not bringing us or giving us peace. Religion is not showing us how to solve our problems. All religion is doing at this point, from what I can see, is serving as one more way to divide us and give us something to argue over. It's not getting us to love. It's not leading us to peace. It's not bringing us to joy. Given the number of Christian denominations and the speed with which they are multiplying, combined with all the other religious factions, rather than achieving oneness or peace or love, we seem to be generating a dizzying array of ideas that seem to fuel the fear and loathing climate, the hate and hysteria, the division and derision. It has always seemed to me that the only way to solve the problems on Earth, Eden, Gaia, the only way to find some unity, the only way to find our way to oneness, would be to go back to the beginning and figure out what happened. How did we get here? When I traced things back, I discovered the concept of good, or God rather, has existed has existed since the beginning of time, because it means something so much more than what people understand. The sound God means the creator or supreme being, our great parent. It means the all that is, because AAH is the sound of space. We all think that it's quiet out there, but it's not if you have the right ears. NASA has developed instruments to measure the electromagnetic vibrations of space, and these instruments have recorded the sound in our solar system. That is why I suggest the use of the term to replace the word God, because the word God is not meant to be a word. It's meant to be a sound. I will never forget the feeling I had when that bit of information came clear to me. I had been doing what I do, studying, finding that thread and teasing it out. Then the rest of the time I was meditating on what I was studying and learning. When the idea crystallized, I got goosebumps from head to toe. It's about the sound. Language evolved from sound to written words. The sound of things came first. So when we figured out how to capture the sound in written form, the sound of things came first. Then we figured out how to capture the sound in written form. So the word God is meant to replicate the sound of the one great mind. It is my belief that the word God, or Yah and Yahweh in Hebrew, Allah in Arabic, perhaps even Krishna in Hindu and Jehovah in the Old Testament, are meant to replicate the sound of the universe. They all contain the sound within them. The sound of the universe, the sound of the one great mind and parent, is the sound of love. The sound of the universe, is the frequency of 528, which is referred to as the heart frequency. This is what I believe the origin of the word God to be, the sound that it replicates. Before we had language, we had sounds. All these names have the sound in them. Yahweh, Allah, Krishna, Jehovah, Yah, God. That can't be a coincidence. There are no coincidences. If you're interested, you can find numerous variations of 528 Hertz on YouTube. If you look for Salvaggio 528, you'll find a variety of productions. And Salvaggio is Solfeggio. There's a whole range of frequencies. The higher the frequencies move up through the chakras to the crown and above to the universe. And I don't say it here, but the lower ones would go down to the lower chakras. For many years, I've been adamant that if we want to learn to communicate with each other peacefully, we must stop using the word God, stop using all religious words, because religious words are the words of dogma, dogma gone awry for many at this point. So we may be using the same word, but we all have different meanings for the word God. I don't intend to offend the original religious people reading this, but can you honestly say that there's no problem with the language of religion today? How can we ever find common ground on which to stand and work together if we are continually to use the same language that has gotten us to this point of separation and fear? As Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used to create them. And Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. Perhaps this handbook is the new model. I'm not asking or suggesting anyone give up his or her religion. All I'm asking is that you open your mind to a broader understanding and scope. Open up to the possibility that there may be multiple ways to get to heaven, that your way, if you have one, might not be the only path. Open up to the possibility that the way to find peace is to embrace an interfaith approach, to embrace something outside all religion that we can all agree on. Open up to the possibility that because the teachings we've been handed down through the ages were written by human beings in this third dimension, there may be some inaccuracies, mistakes, or even disasters. Isn't it possible, just as I have demonstrated with all the other research, that there may be some errors in the ideas we've been led to believe? Is there a chance that some folks along the way didn't quite understand life and how it truly works, and by not understanding life themselves have misled the rest of us? Perhaps not on purpose, but by accident? Isn't there a possibility someone with personal or financial motives has modified the truth? History has shown it is possible over and over in war and politics. So isn't it possible the same thing has happened in our religious teachings? Don't we owe it to ourselves to ask these questions? I hope you'll be open enough to recognizing that many people have rejected religion because of the judgments they feel. I ask you to be open enough to acknowledge we have a problem facing our planet in the form of a division among people, and that no one religion seems capable at the moment of bringing all these sweeping changes of love and peace that we need. It doesn't even seem feasible that any existing religion has enough members to overpower the others. And that's a thank goodness. But it would be nice if we could all agree on peace. Isn't the incredible speed with which we are creating new religions a clear sign that we're lost? Even if you feel comfortable and confident in your religion, can you see from the table of religions that there's no way anyone is going to win this discussion? So what do we do? Many people give up right there, right here. It is difficult for us humans to stop and actually think when we are faced with something as huge as overcoming the problems of the world and finding a way to make peace with each other. Most of us give up thinking. It's too huge. It makes your head hurt, so you stop. I happen to be gifted with the ability to know that the pain in my brain is my brain actually working. So instead of pulling back from the pain, I push into it. It's like walking into the wind. You put your head down, you shoulder into it. Wallace D. Wattles, in his book, The Science of Getting Rich, says that sustained thinking is the hardest thing we're asked to do as humans. Or, as Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the probable reason why so few people engage in it. But serious thought is how all great inventions have been made. It is the power of creation. Most people stop thinking the minute their heads start to hurt. Instead, we should think of the pain the way you think of it if you were working out. You don't get off the Stairmaster or treadmill the minute it starts hurting. You push into it, but with your brain. You stop, don't you? Think of what you might do, learn, or be if you just learn to push into it. So my question to you is this: can the idea of interfaith live? Are we capable of putting some religious details aside to allow us to find a more common ground upon which we can stand, so that we all might be one? Take, for example, the story of the Garden of Eden, our fall from grace. I ask you, who wrote that? Do we know? Was it one person? Has the story been revised? Isn't it interesting that so much of humanity hangs in the balance over this one story? I got in deep trouble for asking those questions as a young child, but I feel the same way today as I did all those many years ago. That story, along with many others that I've learned, doesn't ring true to me. Not at all. I personally know it to be wrong because of my connection to our shared parent. All I'm asking is that you keep an open mind and entertain the possibilities. Or skip the rest of this chapter if you're deeply religious and it's too much for you. I think you'll find other value in this handbook, even if you skip this chapter completely. Here's an anonymous quote. If you resist reading what you disagree with, how will you ever acquire deeper insights into what you believe? The things most worth reading are precisely those that challenge our convictions. Jesus, and let's see, I wonder, we might not make it out of this chapter today. Oh, yeah, I think we will. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be close. Jesus, along with the terms Christ, Greek for anointed one, and Christ consciousness, also needs addressing. Jesus was a man, specifically Jesus of Nazareth, or as I believe we should refer to him, Yeshua ben Joseph. Yeshua ben Joseph was a man who remembered his connection to his creative parent, whom he is quoted as referring to as Father or my Father. No one gets to the Father but through me. In that quote, he tells us that as long as we remember our connection to the same creative parent, we can do as he did, or even greater things. That quote has been horribly misinterpreted by some. Yeshua ben Joseph's whole life and legacy has been twisted between poor translations, small minds, and grabs for control and power. Yeshua ben Joseph, as a man, achieved and demonstrated the consciousness of an anointed one. Therefore, he became referred to as the Christ. This is where the term Jesus Christ came from, and the term Christ consciousness. These are small but important details that I believe have been lost in translation over time, and these misconceptions have helped to muddy the waters of understanding truth, of understanding and truth. Yeshua ben Joseph came to this life to show us how to live a life of enlightenment, so that we might experience joy, harmony, and peace. However, that is not what we have been taught. Sin, guilt, and other religious burdens were never the purpose of Yeshua. He attempted to form a new way to live based on his beliefs that would lead us back to the lives of love and joy we are supposed to be living. When it became clear that he was to die, he went willingly because he knew it was his path. He understood that every moment of his life was divine because he was always connected to his great parent, our shared parent. It's the same parent, Jesus' parent and our parent, your parent, my parent. Christianity didn't come about because everyone worshipped Yeshua ben Joseph for his talents and founded a religion in his honor. But in actuality, Yeshua ben Joseph founded Christianity himself. Yeshua ben Joseph was just like any other self-declared Messiah, with the exception that his skills outshine those of any other Messiah to date. No one we know of has replicated the miracles of Yeshua ben Joseph. Falling short of that, to embody Christ consciousness is to attain the same level of understanding that Yeshua ben Joseph demonstrated, and that, many agree, people have attained. Here are a few who have attained Christ consciousness. St. Francis, St. Therese of Lisieux, St. John of the Cross, Mahavatar Babaji, Krishna, Ramakrishna, Yogananda, Buddha. Can you think of any others? Christ is a word used to describe a state of consciousness which was fully manifest in Yeshua ben Joseph and in others. It is a consciousness of our creative or heavenly parent, our shared parent, our parental source, our parent. However, the fact remains that all these words, God, Christ, Jesus, the Father, and the dogma of formalized religions, can be alienating when we try to talk about what's really happening here on Earth, in this third dimension in which we find ourselves. Among the people working to find peace and oneness, there's an urge to talk about evolution and becoming something new. But it's really not that at all. It's about going back to our roots. It's about reconnecting with what we really are, with what we already are but have forgotten. It's about learning who we really are from within. It's about remembering. A friend of mine told me that her kids ask her, "You keep telling us we came here to do something. We have a purpose. How do we know what that is?" And she said, "What do I tell them? I don't even know that for myself." No one ever tells us that. How do we find our purpose? How do we figure this out? She's right, isn't she? We hear you can be anything you want, but are we given the tools to do that? Don't worry, I'm going to give them to you. As I mentioned, from my first moments after birth, this place confused and overwhelmed me. I had to get the bottom of what was going on around here. I had to find answers. The first place I focused on was religion, because religion was always something that bothered my mother, and she shared that bother with me. Although I was very unhappy with my mother for most of my life, I have come to realize that she was exactly what I needed, as I'm sure you'll see as these stories emerge. Thank you, Mommy. My mother was too smart for religion. What I mean is that religion, all religion, any religion, is a compilation of numerous people's input over time. We really don't know anything about the beginning of humanity. Our recorded history all starts once we developed language and writing. So the Bible was written by numerous people. Whenever you have a situation such as that, you're bound to have inconsistencies and anomalies. My mother's mind was like a trap. She would latch on to every inconsistency or fantastic recollection, and she would spend hours haranguing me with her troubles, wrapping her mind around things. I think she was either an agnostic or an atheist. I'm not sure she ever knew for herself what she was. So she wasn't responsible. She didn't want to be responsible for my religious upbringing or lack of it. So she dragged me all over to all kinds of different churches. We went to a Presbyterian church in New York City, a Dutch Reformed church, an Episcopal church, and several others in upstate New York that I don't remember. All the different churches were torture for me. Not a single place seemed to understand what I understood about life, and not a single person seemed to treat Jesus in a way that made sense to me. First of all, Jesus was just one of many who had a message, but his words in particular seemed to be manipulated or at a minimum misunderstood. I liked the singing, but not necessarily the words of the hymns. I enjoyed the pretty windows and the ones that had stained glass. Sometimes there was decent things to eat. But of all the churches my mother took me to, I liked the Episcopal church the best because the richness of the church. It had great stained glass and rituals. And I love rituals because they can be a wonderful mindless exercise, or at least they can, that's how I've always looked at them. The longer I went to church, though, the less I respected what I saw. I was particularly bothered by the obvious hypocrisy. I was troubled by the focus on appearances. Even as a small child, and I'm talking, 2, 3, 5 years old, the whole business of dressing up for church bothered me. It seemed like everyone was a bunch of phonies. I didn't fail to notice that everyone behaved as he or she wanted the rest of the week. People acted nice on Sundays, but the rest of the week, look out. What a bunch of phonies indeed. The differences between all churches made me curious, though. I couldn't figure out why there were so many variations. Why couldn't everyone agree? And from the time I was old enough to think about these things, I became troubled. So at one point, I decided I was going to sort it all out for myself. I wasn't going to be willing to believe anybody else. I had to find the truth for myself. So I started with Christianity. I started with the factions of Christianity. And that was pretty interesting because when you trace those fractions, you all end up at the same place. You end up at the whole. And when I went on to Judaism and Islam and then Hindu, do you know what happens when you do this? Have you ever thought about all the different religions and where they came from? How about the Native American cultures? Or what about African cultures? Well, I am here to tell you that you can start anywhere. Trace it back. Keep tracing it back. Find out where it started, how it started, what started out saying. Get all the way back to the beginning of each one. Have you ever done it? Do you have any idea what you find when you do? You have no idea how many people I've asked this question of. When I wrote this, it was in not quite 60 years. 5 people have known the answer. Where do you get when you trace any religion to its origin? Have you guessed it yet? You get to the same place. You get to the same exact place. You get to the same 4-letter word. Love. That's right. If you do it, you'll find the same thing. You will have not arrived at hate and misery, fear and loathing, death and despair, sickness and lack. You will find love. Love, joy, and peace. You will find the word or the meaning ah. Ah and spirit have existed from the first moments of thought in the form of language. There has always been the one great parent, the all that is, the oneness of all, the universe, one supreme mind. You will find that each and every religion starts in the concept of love and service. It's not just enough to be here and loving. We are here to serve one another. Derek Sivers said, "If you focus entirely on serving others, the world seems to reward you the most." Well, I am going to push through a little beyond the end of the hours and try and finish this chapter. We all have a talent or skill we came here to perfect and share. We are not nurtured to develop it to our soul's potential. We are not brought up talking about our souls at all, not on a mass scale, certainly not as children. And as adults, rather than honoring each person's personal expression, we tend to force our children to take a shape we want them to take. We're given statements like, you came here for a reason and with a purpose, but we're not giving any guidance on how to find that purpose or fulfill it. In my study of religion, I discovered one religion that got as close to right as any. The Society of Friends, or Quakers, came as close as any in its tenet that there is that of God in every person. The Quakers to this day still operate from the heart, from a place of service and respect of humanity. Interestingly, when I ended up in a foster care at age 15, I got to live with a family of friends. What an amazing experience that was, to live with people who could actually begin to understand me. I was a strange child, as you may have gleaned. Because of their friends' philosophy, for the first time in my life, I felt at home. I actually felt seen for the first time. As far as my parents were concerned, I was a bad child. They always got my IQ, and then until they got my IQ test when I was 10. After that, I was a problem child. I will be forever indebted to the social worker who thought to approach my foster family about me when they were no longer in the system, and for them for saying yes. I spent my last 2 years in high school attending a friend's high school where there were only 18 girls in my graduating class. We attended Quaker meeting every Wednesday as a part of our curriculum. 1 hour of meditation each week. How marvelous that was. I really respect the Society of Friends for how it conducted its worship. Meeting, the Quakers' name for church, is how friends worship together in silent meditation until someone is moved by awe within them or her to speak. There are no priests or ministers, since the Friends believe that all are equal. What they do have are elders, and in the meeting house there are facing benches, which is where the elders sit. The meeting I attended honored the youth also, and so each week there were youth who were invited to sit on the facing benches with the elders. There were many meetings that were totally silent for the entire time, since the only time anyone would speak was when he or she was moved by awe. We never knew what the meeting topic might be, if any. You would just go and be and see what happened, see what came up, either in you that you felt moved by spirit to share, or in someone else who was moved to share. There were some incredible times in that meeting house, some bearing of souls, some inspiration that moved us to tears, some sharings that made our hearts sing. As a teenager, I was moved to tears by my experiences and by the astounding love and openness that these people showed in their religion. And at the end of each meeting, you would turn and you would end up shaking hands with everyone around you and then gladly gathering for social hour in the social hall. There were food and beverages and everyone chatted it up. I found such peace and love there as a 16-year-old. I asked to become a member of the meeting. I truly felt I had found a home. If you ever find where there is a traditional Society of Friends meeting, I encourage you to attend and experience this beautiful form of worship. Meditation is a form of worship. That might strike a good many of you as a new thought, especially many of you who meditate. So let me explain myself. You are a divine being. It does not matter what religion you may call your own, or whether you believe yourself an atheist or an agnostic. You are still a divine being. What makes things real in this regard exists outside of your thoughts. Your thoughts either support or interfere with the isness that you are. So in section 2, I'll be taking you through all of this in detail, but basically you are not the body you see. You are much larger than that. You are an energetic being, and your energetic being is a part of a larger energetic being. Your spirit, the energy of this lifetime in the third dimension, has a purpose. You have a reason for being here. The only way to discover your reason for being here is to go inside yourself. Marilyn Monroe said, "You believe lies, so eventually you learn to trust no one but yourself." Go within. Actually, whenever you're in doubt, do not go around asking a lot of people their opinions. Instead, go within. You will get the answers you need. The entire universe is within you if you go within and learn how to connect with it. I promise you this. Lao Tzu said, when you realize nothing is lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Are there times you can think of in your life when religion has caused any problem, division, upset, or separation between you and others? Can you think of 5 ways we can overcome the problems that religion can cause in daily life? Mahatma Gandhi said, God has no religion. All right, I think we'll start out the next reading with the balancing of our chakra, since we are over time at this point. Thank you, Amber, for joining, and whoever else joined and is here now. Yes, and it surprised me. That was very moving at the end there, that section I was reading about the Quakers. I was surprised to be moved again that way. But Spirit, talks through me. That's the universe when that happens. So I feel blessed. I feel so blessed for those of you who joined me today. Thank you so much. We'll do questions and answers on Tuesday. So if you have any questions, Chelsea, thank you so much. You'll be able to watch the replay as soon as we're done. So email your questions to questions@walkingthroughyourwalls.com. And you can also text me at 907-351-3003. And I'm thinking, that's a regular cell phone too. So I'm thinking during that hour of questions, I could even take a live call on that phone and put you on speakerphone, and you could ask the question that way. So you don't have to type it up while we're doing that. So many blessings to you all. Much love. Namaste. And I'll hope to see you on Tuesday for the Q&A, or back here again on Sunday to pick up the next chapter after balancing your root. We'll be filling in the gaps. So thank you so much again. Namaste. Much love. Everybody take care. Wear a mask. Stay away from people 6 feet. Bye.